Well, I told you that it was on Tuesday, the last episode of the Sharp Best Ball Show. And I lied to you because I am back to do the last Sharp Best Ball Show live draft show. And I am joined today by two stellar individuals, also from Sharp Football Analysis, Mr. Rich Hribar at Lord Reeves on Twitter, and Mr. Raymond Summerlin at RM Summerlin on Twitter. And we are going to do a Best Ball Mania $25. There are still about 8,000 drafts to go. We are going to try and take down the $3 million prize. And speaking of the $3 million,
we'll all quit if it happens.
You will never see any of us again if this happens and we each get $1 million. We will buy out Warren. I will personally shave off the mustache and apply it. No, just kidding. I would never do that. But this show is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy and the biggest fantasy football tournament of all time, Best Ball Mania 4. Don't know what Best Ball is? It's simple. You just enter Best Ball Mania on Underdog's slick mobile app, draft your team, and that's it. Yep, it's set it and forget it as Underdog optimizes your lineup weekly to create the highest scoring one. It's here. It's almost gone, but it's not. It's Best Ball Mania 4, and it's your shot at a first place prize of $3 million. It is not too late to get signed up on UnderdogFantasy.com or via the App Store. And if you do and sign up with the promo code SHARPKIT, they will not only double your first deposit up to $100, but you will also receive the Sharp Football Draft Kit for just $1. That includes over 40 exclusive fantasy football articles, which will help your chances at winning the $3 million grand prize. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SHARPKIT. But before we jump into today's episode, please do me a favor and make sure you give our YouTube channel a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Scroll down to the podcast description and you will find the link. Your support means the world to us, and subscribing helps us to keep the quality content coming your way. And now, let me introduce honored and revered guests, Rich Hribar and Ray Summerlin. Rich, how are you today?
I'm doing good. I haven't got to draft a team with you. I've been on this show 2 times, and we kind of riffed. So I'm excited to actually just put one together with you.
I am too. I think that, one of the things that I was reminded of this week, Rich, for the shameless promotion portion of our show, that you, starting very soon, are going to be locked in the lab working on your worksheets, and that your worksheets come out on Tuesday each week. Is that correct, my friend?
They do. We do start rolling out the games on Tuesdays. For 2 things. One, I take a lot of pride that it is, so detailed and comes out before everyone else's. And then also, I don't want anyone else's work to impact mine. So I like to get kind of my thoughts out there first and not be kind of, manipulated in a direction. Because that happens to us, every summer, right? Think about all these drafts and the conviction you might have a player on in May, and you start bumping them up the board because everyone else has been talking about him for 3 months. So we're all victims to it. It happens to us. It's human nature, right? You have the FOMO of, not going along with the group a little bit. So there are guys that I've nudged up my rankings, begrudgingly. And some guys that maybe I haven't been drafting. And I'm like, well, I have this guy ranked higher, but he's not any of my roster. So I do love that, I kind of get that out or first thing in the week, and it's not kind of manipulated by anyone else's work.
Yeah. And I, out of habit, have used someone else before this year, and I'm sitting there waiting on Thursday evening to get my weekly DFS studying started. So I am truly excited this year to dig into the worksheet. And by the fact of having it on Tuesday, it is I believe, going to make me a much better DFS player So if you're out there, make sure each week you look for Rich's content, the worksheet on Tuesday. And I'm also, my friend, looking forward to drafting this team with you and the great Mr. Raymond Summerlin. Ray was on our show for a portion of a show this year.
That's right. I was deathly ill.
As the show went on, you could see the sweat and the nausea just starting to creep over Ray's face. And it was probably, as much as I like to think that I'm a humorous person, I really do think the humorous part of the season, obviously no one wants to see Ray sick, but it was kind of a little bit humorous to see you turn different colors as the podcast went on. He finally tapped out around round 6 or 7.
Somewhere around there. Yeah, I was sweating profusely. Like, I think I was sweating through a shirt. I might have had a fever. Yeah, it was wild, but we had to get together. We had the Rummy and Ray, get together. So I had to make sure I made an appearance. What I will say is how happy I am to be on an episode of the podcast where I don't have to host and go through all of the ad reads and all of that fun stuff. This has been an exciting intro for me to just sit back, rock around a little bit in my chair as I'm wont to do, and just wait for the party to start. This is, I think, the first podcast I've done where I didn't do really any prep for it. What are we going to do? We're going to draft. I've been doing a bunch of that. What I will say is that I tried to draft 2 30-second teams at the same time yesterday, and that was an experience that I would not recommend to anybody. So, just do the 1 30-second team at a time. If you get it in your mind, you go, I'm going to knock 2 of these out. I got an hour. I'm going to knock 2 of these drafts out. That was a trip. So,
I've done it, and I have the Spike Week overlay, which helps. And this year, what I've done is, because it can get a little crazy, so what I've done is I will do 1 Millie DraftKings and 1 Underdog at the same time.
Right.
And, all my life I was in sales. I was great at multitasking. But it's human nature to also want to check Twitter and to, do other things while you're drafting. And that, my friend, is when you get in trouble. We have an excellent question from Terrell T. Terrell, thank you so much for joining us. I feel if you drafted early in best ball, you made out well with ADPs low, unlike now, and also those who went in on it. I know from Mike Leone's manifesto, Ray, that there's advantages and disadvantages to drafting early. When you draft early, you're more likely to get deals. When you draft early, however, you are also more likely to have player injuries. I think this year, the Jonathan Taylor thing could really be a game changer in the sense that now you can get a guy who can actually win the championship for you 5 rounds later than how he went all off season. So I'm looking forward, Ray, during this draft, the conversation that we'll have about when or when not to take Mr. Taylor. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I've actually been dealing with that a lot lately. To the point, to the question, is it advantageous to draft early? It depends. Did you get in on some of the players who ADPs have ridden? Did you used to get Kenneth Gainwell in the last round on a few teams? If that's the case, then you're probably going to have some really good closing ADP value, which I think we know plays a large role, or not plays a large role, but it's a good indicator of, maybe having some success if you get some of that closing line ADP value, where you're not going to get that now because the ADP now is going to be what it is, when everybody's finished drafting. But it also is going to hurt you if you ended up drafting Jonathan Taylor in the first round or the beginning of the second round. So it cuts both ways. It depends on which way you go. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. As for Jonathan Taylor, I'm kind of the opinion, and we'll see where he goes. He's been kind of going a round or 2 earlier than I'm interested in drafting him at this point. I think that if he's going before Alvin Kamara, I don't really understand that. I think we have more certainty with Alvin Kamara's situation and how long he's going to be gone. There's less maybe 3 down upside with Kamara because Williams is there and Kamara's had some down seasons. But Kamara's kind of been that firewall for me. And if he's going before that, I'm like, I just think I'd just rather have Alvin Kamara. And so that's kind of where I've been looking.
Yeah, I feel like it is like anything else with me. If I do 10 drafts between now and the start of the season, I'm probably going to take a Jonathan Taylor wherever he is, and hopefully it'll be when he does fall to where I like him, because I will want one share of the discount. Rich, I want you to talk about JT, but the other side of the spectrum with Jeff Wilson Jr. being put on IR today, Raheem Mostert is going to be going 5 to 7 rounds earlier than he went during the whole off season. Talk to me about Jonathan Taylor, but also tell me, will you be willing to chase Raheem Mostert up the draft board?
Yeah, with Taylor, I think it's interesting because I think the dichotomy of the conversation definitely is different in the format like this versus a season-long draft, which is a lot of people are going to be doing this weekend. Here you can kind of take Jonathan Taylor on. You're not taking any zeros the weeks he's not playing, and we're trying to win a tournament, right? Like, we're literally trying to scratch lottery ticket, have a player that can win. I talked about Ray about this when he asked how far I moved him down yesterday. And, I ended up moving him down to the the running back, like 25 area. And it's because when you get to that area, it's like a lot of running backs where I look at it, I'm like, well, that running back's not going to beat me, but Jonathan Taylor can still beat me if he's playing. I'm not scared of really Cam Akers beating me. I don't want to step on either of your guys' toes, but I'm not scared of Miles Sanders or Dameon Pierce beating me. I know you guys like
dare
those
you?
players.
How dare you?
But I am still
Dameon Pierce, my second highest on guy.
I know. I don't want to signal you guys out, but Jonathan Taylor can still beat me. But like, you're a season long league, like obviously there are restrictions. He takes a roster spot is valuable in a season long league, where you have movement around it. But not that it's not invaluable here, but you have more outs here as well, and more opportunity cost is removed. So I would be maybe inclined, if the roster fits, to take him. Mostert is going to be one of these guys that fits like team builds, right? How aggressively have you played running back at the open of drafts? Are you looking to catch some of that front end of the season production? It used to be initially that guy was like Samaj P. Ryan, right? And now like things have tapered off. Looks like Javonte Williams is going to be back sooner than later. Jamal Williams now has moved up the boards because we have official clarity on the Alvin Kamara suspension. And Kendre Miller also is hurt now. He had a hamstring injury today too, so we're probably going to get a full run out for Jamal Williams on those rosters. And now Raheem Mostert fits that mold because Devin Achane has a shoulder injury. It's just basically him and Salvon Ahmed. Also, if you look at Miami's schedule, the opening month, they face a lot of pretty solid pass defenses, but a lot of teams that are weaker against the run. So we could see some kind of movement here where they actually run the football more than teams expect, early in the season. So it gives them a little bit out. But I think it's all about team structure. Mostert's a guy I still think is pretty fragile for like 17-week expectations. But if you're, one of these people like throwing a buckshot approach at like RB2, like he fits those type of builds.
Yeah.
I also say that it's
ahead,
wild. It was always wild that people were drafting Devin Achane ahead of Raheem Mostert. It was wilder still that people were drafting Devin Achane ahead of Raheem Mostert whenever it was very clear that Achane was buried on the depth chart in the first 2 preseason games. And it was even wilder still that even after the Achane injury, he was still being drafted ahead of Raheem Mostert. It happened to me in a draft yesterday, and I've never understood it. Raheem Mostert has been, I think, pretty much undervalued throughout this whole process, and now is not the time probably to draft him. If you don't already have Raheem Mostert, now is probably not the time to do it, based on what I assume his price is going to be.
Yeah, I tend not to like to chase guys up the draft board, especially if I already have good ownership on them, right? I'm not saying I won't take them, like Rich said, in certain builds, but Darren Waller was a guy that I had a good bit of late. I felt that he was undervalued, and it turns out I was correct. But I'm much less likely, especially on Underdog, FFPC, where point and a half, I'll chase him up a little bit. But I tend to look for the guy who falls when other people move forward. I like Achane a little bit more than you, Ray. But at the same time, I certainly get it. I think A-Chain was always going to be a guy that they were going to have packages for, and that if he did well, he would have a chance to expand that. Mike McDaniel is one of those guys I think we can assign rational coaching for, right? There's a lot of people that we can't assign rational coaching for, but I trust that they brought A-Chain in and they're going to use him if he's healthy. And I've always liked him. I've always felt he was going a little earlier than he should, but he was the type of guy who had the talent that I didn't want to be too underweight on, because he still was a double-digit guy. Rich, final thoughts on this?
No, I think, I mean, it's an ambiguous situation still. I think there's going to be a lot of fluidity during the season. I think Miami will try to figure things out as they go. Again, I mean, are we going to bet on a 31-year-old running back having 17-game value? Probably pretty thin. That was always the bet on Jeff Wilson too. Like, Jeff Wilson's never played a full NFL season.
Hey, I hate to interrupt you, esteemed guest, but I just threw us into the draft queue.
Yeah, do it.
And of course, immediately it started. I was the 12th. I was the 12th guy. So
yeah, steer the ship, Captain.
Yep, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger on my end. But Sean, I think what you're going to need to do is get our pretty faces off the screen and there we go. Can you guys see that pretty well?
I can
see it.
Awesome.
I got cheaters though, so I'm in the one resident cheater here.
All right, so we got the 11th pick, which is my favorite has been 8th, 9th, or 10th, but I really do like the 11th also, because I really feel like there's a big drop off in talent after like 2.6, 2.7. So we're going to get two guys that we really like.
Back third is my favorite spot also. As the hundreds of drafts we've done, I've settled in when people always ask in like the chat and stuff, like what pick because sometimes you get to pick your draft slot and they always ask me, and back third is my favorite area this year.
Yeah. And I don't feel you miss out much, because it's so flat from the beginning, like the end of the second round through the early part of the fourth round. I find it to be very, very flat. So I'm putting in kind of in my order the guys that I like. But once we get closer, we can discuss who we want the first people. Got it, Ray. It's just a little wonky for me, but there we go. All right. So let's wait until we get like 2 or 3 picks away, and we will see who we like. Trell T jumps in and says G. Wilson and St. Brown. Honestly, those have been my 2 favorite targets at the end of drafts. I will mix them up because Wilson goes with Chubb for that Week 17 correlation, and St. Brown goes with CeeDee Lamb and or Pollard. So I think you need to mix it and match it as you do different drafts. But if I was doing one draft that my fantasy life depended on, I think I agree with you. Thoughts? Well, we're getting close, guy. Let's go with Rich first. Rich, who's your favorite guy?
I mean, I love attacking that Cowboys game too, the Cowboys-Lions game. You can stack it thoroughly throughout the entire draft, which is why I love it so much. So, I mean, I'm more of a Pollard than Lamb guy on that side of the coin. So if you want to go on,
well, that's good because Lamb just went.
Yeah. Oh, see, perfect. Yeah.
Yep. And Cooper Kupp is still there. But why don't we take Amon? Ray, are you okay with Amon-Ra?
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Stacking that game, I mean, we're going to have to get different with the way we stack it. Like maybe end up with Michael Gallup, or just draft Brandon Cooks because that's who Rich wants to draft in every draft.
I mean,
assuming that
I can't say I blame him.
You have Laporta, even Goff as a QB2 fits that mold. Like there's
our favorite player, Jake Jesse Ferguson. That'll be
so. I got a So it worked out, but it was interesting that Travis Kelce lasted to 2-1 and Kupp landed at 2-10. So I wanted to make note of that being a little bit different.
We don't have to take Pollard. We don't have to. We didn't have to go for the stack.
we now it makes sense. So we've got, and I think that the Lamb ARSB correlation is going to be, there's going to be far more teams with Lamb and ARSB than Pollard and ARSB. So I don't think we need to be quite as unique. But and I also don't mind, Pollard. Ray, Pollard's had about as good a run out as you can possibly hope for with news.
Yeah, actually, Ryan and I talked about it on the podcast last night. Ryan likes him plus 1,800 to lead the league in rushing. Not that he's the favorite to lead the league in rushing, but he's got an outside chance to do that because they didn't bring anybody in. There were no veteran backs brought in. The well of veteran backs is starting to dry up. We'll see where Kareem Hunt lands. I have my conspiracy theories about the Colts running. Leonard Fournette, we haven't heard from him in a while, right? And so, yeah, everything points to him just being the clear lead back. And when the player is that efficient and the clear lead back, and he's maintained that efficiency as his carry total has increased every season of his career, it's a no-brainer. Actually, Tony Pollard went as the RB2 in one of the underdog drafts I did yesterday, and I really didn't hate it. Like, I didn't have anything to say about it. That's higher than he normally goes, but could he finish above Eckler? Certainly.
Yeah, and again, we never know, Rich, if a guy is doing 1 draft, 2 drafts, or 100 drafts.
Right.
Because if you're doing 100 drafts, reaching, because where ADP is most firm is in the beginning of drafts, right? As drafts go on, ADP gets looser and looser. So to reach and take a guy like Pollard in the first couple picks, as long as, you have to remember that Pollard was also going in the 3rd round when these first started, that, it might not be as unique as you think. But thoughts on that, Rich?
Yeah, that's a great point. And, if you're someone that drafts like you, you're basically going to let the board kind of dictate where you go, right? Like, you're going to let ADP kind of, you're going to look where you can catch your values because you're going to have exposure to so many players over the course of 150 drafts and then more if you're including other sites as well. What number Best Ball Mania is this for you?
Best Ball Mania, it's like I think I'm in the 50s.
Okay.
But I did my how much money I'm spending everywhere, and I'm like 12 grand into, maybe more. I'm 15 grand on FFPC. So, I use Underdog a little bit more for the lower contests, but I do want to, I thought I would do 30 of the Best Ball Mania, and I'm in my 50s. So it's just the addiction. But I also, I've got like 80 of these weekly winners because I think there's a tremendous edge. I don't think the field has figured out how to do those yet. And I think that I have some huge advantages there. So yeah, that's how many I did. How about you?
No, I'm only in like the 30s. I'm not someone that really max enters. I think that I treat them more as like lottery tickets here, and I treat it like the old DFS grind where I'm playing a lot of leagues to improve that ROI, and then kind of using that to kind of funnel like my tournament money.
All right, let's look at the board. I love Ramondre. I think that I love Ramondre, but is there and I will put up some of the guys that we haven't had, I don't have in the queue. Ray, who do you like here? Real quick, just the name, and Rich, the name that you like here.
Yeah, without looking at the entire board, I mean, Amari and Keenan Allen are who I'm normally drafting here, but you're getting a good value on Ramondre, so I have no problem.
Rich?
I mean, it's a different build. I said, Underdog, you typically are looking at wide receivers here. It's going to, we're going to hit that wide receiver avalanche. I will say if we take Ramondre, we can basically ignore a running back for a while.
I agree.
Catching him on a slide.
So, I'm open to Watson here. I'm open to...
He'll be back. Watson will be there at 4-2.
Yeah, Watson will come back.
Let's take the Mondre.
And I don't think you have to twist either Ray or Mai's arms on Christian Watson.
All right, so we got
we
Watson there.
We are team Christian Watson here. I mean, I would draft Amari Cooper over Christian Watson in most scenarios. That might be taken away from us here in a second, but Christian Watson is there it goes. Christian Watson is the real upside play here. If Jordan Love hits, that's going to do it.
Well, and as we go along, we know that Watson is more hit or miss. So typically what I do in situations like that is I'll look for a little bit more floor in my wide receivers going forward. I always look at drafting and there goes Christian Watson. So
that is a problem.
I like Mike Williams. I like Drake London. I like DJ Moore a little bit.
I think DJ Moore is just the move. You look at the Bears schedule, and this is the format for DJ Moore, right? Like, you only get the best of DJ Moore.
Well, more or less. I guess that's true.
Listen, I set you up for it.
Yep, and from a Week 17 perspective, DJ Moore opens up Kyle Pitts, and because Drake London will be gone when we come back. So I like the team so far. You can see we've got Pollard and Ramondre at running back. We've got Amon-Ra and DJ Moore at wide receiver. And because we use Chrome for our podcasts, we do not have access to the overlay, but that's okay. Sometimes it's fun to do it without. So I'm going to add enough. Go ahead, Rich.
Speaking of the screen not being in dark mode, I don't even understand how you look at this. This, especially with Rich's readers. I mean, you're getting fully blinded there.
What's interesting is I'm dark mode for mobile, but I am light mode for the.
Oh, look how
PC.
Beautiful that is! Look how magical that is.
Ray, you know all the nice things I've said about you to this point.
My problem with not having dark mode on for the PC is so many of my tabs don't have dark mode that I'm flipping for, so it just messes with my eyes going from one screen to the other. But mobile, we're dark mode all the way.
I am light mode. I think light is preferable to darkness in almost every circumstance. But I also realize that most people think that I am a weirdo, and I am just playing into that sense by being a guy who likes the light mode. So I put.
Let's go back to it then. I'm gonna learn to love it. I'm gonna put my Sith ways aside, and I'm gonna learn to love the
so I left Madison and Pierce out because we've got the two good running backs. Godwin and Pickens. I've been adding a lot of Pickens lately because he was a guy that I hadn't drafted much. That was the one we talked about biases earlier, Rich. Mm-hmm. The bias, my biggest bias of the year was that Pickett wouldn't improve, and that there were so many weapons on the Steelers that none of them were really good values. And I think that Pickens has improved his route tree enough that I might be wrong. Your thoughts on Pickens and the Steelers?
I mean, I've been pro, Steelers regression to the mean. It just how much does that blow past is kind of what happened. So even with a guy like Pickens, I still think there's going to be some volatile weeks here, right? Because is Kenny Pickett going to support all three of these guys, including Pat Freiermuth, another player that I like as well? Is he on a weekly basis? Are all three of those guys going to pop? I would say probably not. So I still think there's going to be some uneven kind of production of, is it a Pickens week? Is it a Freiermuth week? Is it a Deontay Johnson week? But he's definitely a guy that's going to have those spike weeks for sure.
Yeah, and he's the one that fits half PPR the most, right? It's less catches, but when he makes a catch, it could be a 60-yard touchdown.
The thing about Pickens is what you were really worried about as a rookie was his. He was targeted on 14.5% of his routes last year, and that was because he ran a go route like 38% of the time. What you wanted to see was more full field usage from him, and both from what we saw in preseason usage and the comments from Pickett, it looks like we're getting that, and that just really that solidified it for me that I'm going to be drafting a lot of George Pickens this year.
All right. So coming up, I definitely don't want Jerry Jeudy here coming off that hammy. Obviously, if Justin,
you can just remove him from the board.
All right. So if Justin Fields makes it, I think he's a no-brainer with DJ Moore. We would be getting a 17.
Oh,
there he goes.
He's gone.
Jinxed it.
I don't believe in jinxes. I believe that people go because they were meant to go. I like Dotson. I like Godwin.
This probably has to be 2 wide receivers.
Yeah, but which one?
So you're chasing with Dotson. You're chasing that ADP up the board.
Yeah, agree.
Which is tough. But
I mean, we've got Moore, who's kind of more of a stable guy, and Amon-Ra, who's more stable. Why don't we take Mike Evans here?
Yeah, I guess I don't have any Mike Evans, so I'm very fine with that. But yeah, that might be the play, and then try to get.
And then I'm thinking maybe Pittman on the way back, and then that would open up Richardson. Oh, that's right. We have a man here who hates Richardson. I mean, the truth is,
what I'll say is that Gabe Davis really matches well with Ramondre there.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think Gabe Davis, this is one of those you're buying low based on last year. They did nothing to replace him. I've been drafting a lot of Deontay Hardy in the last round, but yeah,
I have too.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
I have been Hale and Hardy.
That's also the area too. I have no problem adding Gabe Davis, but that's Jackson Smith and Jigba by the dip zone. He's already practicing. It looks like he's definitely, there was some kind of like fear that like he might be held out to their bye week because they have a week 5 bye. And there seems to be no indication that's going to happen. Like he's already practicing and catching passes. So even if he's limited week 1, he's going to definitely be on the field before his bye week.
Yeah, I have been. I was way too low on Jackson.
I wasn't getting a lot of him early because obviously he was at his highest apex, and now
he was too expensive for me. With the other 2 receivers there, when you still have Pete Carroll who could go, turn it into a slogfest at any moment. But I took this week to really try and beef up my JSN exposures, Rich.
Yeah. I tried to talk our buddy Curtis Harsh into drafting him in the main event we're doing, and he wasn't having it.
Well, Connie Bow asks, I drafted Cup yesterday. What should I do? 10-man league.
Cry.
Panic.
Cry.
You should panic. I mean, what
do you do? I took him at 108 in the main night on Tuesday.
But since that isn't a strategy, what I would do is possibly look to pick up Puka Nacua on waivers. I think he is the guy most likely to, or in a 10-man league, you might have Van Jefferson on the waiver wire. Maybe if you're in a league where you could trade for Higbee, I don't know. I honestly, though, right now they're saying day to day. I wouldn't panic. I mean, Cooper Kupp could still be the number 1 wide receiver in football this year. I wouldn't get too crazy. Once you got over your panic, right?
I mean,
you can tell how far we into draft season because Rich went full nihilist. Like,
yeah, just cry.
What do I do? Cry. You cry. That's what you do. That's how deep we are into the draft season.
It really, though, if you've already drafted and you have Kupp, I mean, you just have to hope that the Rams are going to take the precautionary measures. I honestly, you don't want it to happen, but I want him to miss as many games as it takes for him to be fully healthy. Like, you don't want this to be a situation where it just is something that we deal with the rest of the year. When we see Cooper Kupp play, we want him to be 100% in full go the rest of the year. We don't want to have a situation like Keenan Allen last year where he comes back and then he's off the field and then he's missing more time. And then we only have getting like a 5-week stretch of like wide receiver 1 production. So even if it takes to week 2 or week 3, you just hopefully, you see him come back healthy. And the Rams are at least an organization from a sports science stance. Like they've always been kind of one of the better teams with that. So I think that they'll be, cautionary with him as well.
I saw
That's
something.
also
I saw something today where someone said that McVay is the most overrated coach in the league, and I said, "Did you see what he got out of Baker Mayfield last year?" Go ahead, Ray. You were going to say something.
Oh, well, like that concern that you have with Cup is the same concern you have with Jerry Jeudy, which is why we took him off the board, which is why I have a lot of Jerry Jeudy from earlier in the draft season and I haven't been drafting. It's easier for me to not draft him at all because I already had a lot. But if they rush Jerry Jeudy back and he gets another injury, another hamstring injury, we don't want that. We want them to let Jerry Jeudy heal. We want them to let Cooper Kupp heal. If it means you don't have him for 3 weeks, that's better than not having him for 12 over the course of the season. So
Right.
that's the real concern you have now with Kupp. There's nothing to do. He's on your team, but that's really your concern.
So, I mean, to me, the guy that I'm hoping makes it to us is Kyle Pitts. I already talked about how he's got that week 17 correlation with DJ Moore. And he also, to me, he's dropped about a round and a half over the last period of time. And to me, I mean, he's still a guy who could just give you tight end one numbers if things go right. Your guys' thought on Kupp? Anyone else you like? I mean, Pitts. Anyone else you like here?
Yeah, I
You
think
flash the
Pitts
quarterbacks on the screen. Where are we getting with quarterbacks?
Quarterback, we can get. I mean, we could take. Why don't we take Pitts? And I'm okay with taking Dak a little early at 8-1 if you want.
What were the other quarterbacks? I'm fine with whatever. I'm fine with
Richardson.
Yeah, I'm going to take Pitts. I mean, Dak's not going to make it back. He's not. We're on 86, and Dak is 106. I mean, he could if you guys want to take a shot. But
I would take the risk on that. That's way too.
Because
that's way too.
There's a lot of guys in that area. I think where you can double dip. You can get Geno, Goff.
It's just who do you like here?
Richardson.
I mean, I'm okay with Kamara if you want Kamara.
Was David Montgomery drafted?
Yes,
yeah, he was taken.
He
ended up with Evans, right?
He would have been a good on this team.
Yeah, we've got Evans.
You want to just go full weird and draft Rashad White and end up and just pray that Tampa Bay's offense is.
We still need wide receivers though. Like we're at the Avalanche, right?
How about Elijah Moore or Sky Moore? Quick, Rich.
Gross.
Elijah or Sky?
That's why I said though. That's why we're there.
Sky. Oh, we got Elijah. There we go.
I made the executive decision. I took Elijah.
But we were at that fire. Bateman and Burks were there too.
Well, we got 2 and 5, so I feel
Burks
like
would have been the best receiver I think to take there.
Okay, but
Sky Moore would have been the best.
We didn't
to me.
see him, so my screen's
I'm
so
all
big.
in on Sky Moore being the number one in Kansas City after everything we saw. So he's going to hurt me 2 years in a row, is what I've just told you. But I'm all in on it. I don't care.
I've got a tremendous. Sky's one of my top 5 own wide receivers, so I feel
Elijah Moore's ADP makes no sense to me. If you check our rankings on the site, like I'm like 20 or 30 spots below market on Elijah Moore.
Well, I didn't hear a clear answer, so
I know that's our fault. That's our fault. You're the captain.
Yeah.
You're the one clicking the buttons.
You had to make a decision.
Yeah.
So
we've got options though. I think like Burks and Bateman are fine still to throw in a league like this. I know Ray does like Bateman, but he's perfect.
Well, this is where I like. Now you got to remember something. A lot of the puzzle at running back has been answered. Earlier on in the season, I was a lot more comfortable in the 15th, 16th, 17th round taking my 4th, 5th, 6th running back. A lot of those guys are gone now. So I think that we have to come out of the next one with our 3rd running back and a quarterback.
And probably a quarterback.
Yeah. Well, let's see what's there. I don't want to. I don't want to push the position if there's not a guy. I will tell you right now that I like Brian Robinson a lot in half PPR. I think Charbonnet would fit this build because we've got 2 really good running backs. So I'm okay with Charbonnet. But if Dak makes it to us, he's the first pick.
He has to be. Yeah. what I'll say about I have no Brian Robinson because I don't see the upside because he already got 19 touches a game over a long period last year and was like the RB 35 in per game scoring. Maybe he gets more involved in the passing game. We'll see. But he split goal line work with Antonio Gibson last year already, so it's not like you're even getting. Well, it's not like you're getting Jamal Williams out of that either. So I'm out on Brian Robinson, but that means I have no Brian Robinson. So
he did kind of get shot last year. So I think there might be upside that we haven't seen. But
that's fair. But
I think people are just pumping the
the
Commanders too highly anyways. Has anyone looked at the Commanders schedule, especially in a tournament like this? They play the Jets and the 49ers week 16 and 17.
Yeah,
like that's rough.
That's pretty rough.
It's not ideal. It's not
we're like you can get like it's one thing if Brian Robinson's like chipping in like week 7 through 10 and giving you some RB2 weeks, but when the money's on the table in those playoff weeks, man, like we need some upside.
Well, I mean, if Isaiah Pacheco somehow makes it, I'd even be willing to push Dak to the second pick. If there he goes. I did it again.
It's been consistent. I'm kind of you're actually working some pretty for someone who doesn't believe in jinxes. You're working a pretty good hit rate here.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. You know,
there goes Dak.
Are you serious? What an asshole! I mean, and he didn't have. Oh, he did.
He had Lamb. He had Lamb.
All right. Well, let's see. I'm not much on Dylan. What do you think about Richardson?
Richardson's the one you don't need to stack.
This is probably going to have to be like a Richardson Goff team or like a Richardson. Well, I guess Gino. We don't have any Seahawks, but like a Richardson Goff. What else? What other options?
I mean, the great thing about Richardson is if it all falls to crap, he could run enough that, so you don't like Brian Robinson. What do you think of Charbonnet?
Yeah, I'm fine with him. I think Dylan is probably a better contingency bet here because he already has goal line carries already. He's already this stat.
Yeah, but they were looking at Jonathan Taylor. But let's go.
Yeah, they should have been. If you could trade AJ Dillon for Jonathan Taylor, you should do that.
I would think.
I mean,
I took Dillon
100% of the shots you don't take.
I took Dillon. I was off him, but this is, I mean, I think it's a pretty good pick.
Yeah, let me make a small case for him in this format in particular. One, he already has the goal line carries with this regime, and then the contingency upside. Like if anything were to happen to Aaron Jones, like that already happened. So we already might luck box into him scoring a touchdown on random weeks, and then if something were to happen to Aaron Jones. So he's this is like kind of the format for him. But in a weekly format, you're gonna have to guess when he scores that touchdown, and he's a terrible pick in that format. He's literally just a handcuff.
Yeah, there's not a chance I'd draft AJ Dillon in redraft. I'm fine with him here. I think Jaylen Warren would probably be my pick there. But yeah, I'm fine with him there. What about we need to talk about what we want this build to look like now that we have it. It seems like we're going to need just 2 tight ends. If we end up with Goff, maybe just 2 quarterbacks. And so then what are we looking at? Like 8 and 6? Yeah. Is that what we're looking at?
It's
8 wide receivers, 6 running backs?
Team.
Yeah, I think we still can't I don't make that decision until I get a couple more rounds down, because it's still too fluid. And I was thinking about it. Somehow in my brain, I thought we had Lamb instead of Pollard. I don't think losing Dak is that big a deal, considering we didn't have Cooks or Lamb. And Richardson, we got.
The good thing about
we can get.
The good thing about Richardson is you don't have to stack him, so it's fine because he could just run for like 3 touchdowns and still.
But Pierce is a very good option late because he's going to play the whole game, and he'll give you some big weeks when he makes the big plays.
Yeah, I think you can make an argument for Pierce too, and not just because you say the format, but because defenses are going to have to account for Anthony Richardson's rushing ability. The Colts are going to be a team that see a lot of single high safeties. Like they're going to be a team that has a lot of defenses playing a lot more devotion to players in the box. So you are going to get a lot of that one-on-one opportunities. And Richardson actually does throw a good deep ball.
Oh my gosh.
That's the thing.
Yes.
If you're looking at what Richardson, like, where are you going to trust him the most? It's going to be throwing deep. That's where Pierce runs. And if you look at Pierce's numbers last year, they, from an efficiency standpoint, they were bad. He played most of the season with Matt Ryan, who you would probably say the opposite about. And so I do think that there is
Someone
some,
just took Jared Goff. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Really?
But someone just took Goff. That sucked.
Well ahead of ADP.
Yeah. And they don't have, who do they, as a second quarterback too. All right. And Mostert went. I was hoping he would make it back. I like Bigsby. I like Jacoby Myers. I think Elijah Mitchell fits this build really well. Gainwell's there. We didn't take Wilson, but I think Rodgers. Oh, there goes Rodgers. All right. This time, Ray,
this might be a
choice.
Jameson Williams.
No, I mean Rich. Ray got the last one. Rich, wait, who got the last? But anyway, Rich, tell me who you want.
Got 18 seconds. Let's go.
Oh man, I think we need wide receivers, man.
No, we only have. Yeah. No, we got 5 wide receivers. How about Jacoby? I like Jacoby.
I mean, I have no.
Oh wait, you know what? I'm taking him because you get that week 17 with Richardson.
Yeah, that is true. If you want to take another receiver and then try to load up on running backs late,
the value
Jameson
right
still
now
fits in
is
this,
that
even if you don't have Goff.
the value is that running back. You could also make a case for taking Russ.
I like Elijah Mitchell here. I think Elijah Mitchell makes some sense.
You got Pickett, Love.
Let's take Elijah. Elijah and Prophet. No? Yes. All right. You guys didn't say anything.
I know. I said let's take Elijah. Then I just stared at the screen waiting for the draft button to show up.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was like, oh no.
This is so big. I can't even see what I'm looking at half the time. Sorry, Ray.
Yeah, let's get some receivers in this queue.
Yeah, well, now we're going to run
your
into.
Thing,
now we're going to run
into.
Your
thing with receivers is interesting because, at this point in the draft, I feel very comfortable with where we are at receiver, and I feel a lot more comfortable with late round receivers at this point in these drafts than I do with late round running backs.
I agree 100%.
But our team build is already running back forward. So these guys are largely not going to play on our roster.
Well, but what we can do is if we take the 5th running back, at the end of the draft, I'm with Ray. There's a lot of guys I like at the end at wide receiver. We could take, I think we're going to need a 3rd quarterback here now. And so I would like to finish at running back, but let's see who makes it. There's not, I like Jordan Love or Pickett or Purdy if they make it back, even though we don't have stacks. And I like Chig Okonkwo also. Rich,
we can't be picky at quarterback at this point. It's not from a building stance. Like, we're not taking Garoppolo. We're not taking Baker. We're not taking any of these backdoor stacks.
I also want to be clear. We're not taking Purdy. I feel very strongly about that one.
So Purdy's the next pick. Got it.
Fair enough. That's how you want to live your lives. I'm fine with that. But
I took him out of the queue. Ray doesn't like him. He's out of the queue, even though the guy is.
I've
really
kind of been.
value.
If you wanted to draft Chig, I've kind of been in a little bit on Ryan Tannehill really lately. I think things with Will Levis, not really developing. Things have kind of fallen good for him. And then you can add, some of the Houston receivers late and kind of do a mini stack that way for both week 15 and 17. So that might be an approach for our 3rd quarterback if you want to go that way.
Yeah, I think we might not have a 3rd quarterback the way this is going. In other words, by the time we get back up at this rate, there's not going to be any quarterbacks left. I mean, this is a pretty heavy.
I have been getting locked out of quarterbacks more lately. I feel like the quarterback ADP has changed in the last couple weeks somewhat. I'm not sure why, but
I do.
actually, it's funny. I ended up in a draft room with Pat Corain, who won the
I
best
just
Ball
thought of
Mania
it, but go ahead.
last year, and he had the same issue. We were both picking 11th and 12th, and we were texting in the draft about how we both just got locked out of quarterback. The quarterbacks have been going in odd places ahead of ADP. It seems like with me drafting over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. So what happens is as you get more tourists, as I like to call them, the tourists are much more likely to take quarterback early.
Yeah. It seems like that's been happening for sure.
Yeah. So I think we have to take Howell or Stafford here. I mean, we don't even have a choice now.
Right.
With
click the quarterback tab just so I can see just the quarterbacks. Yeah, that's not pretty at all.
No.
Well, I mean, I don't think you're getting an argument from Rich about Sam Howell, right? Rich, you kind of like the upside there.
I mean, it's fine at this point. I think that he's kind of a trap in season long. Because again, week 16, week 17, like the Commander schedule's awful. It's bad, man. It's rough. We have our hands are tied here, obviously.
Well, the thing about Howell is he runs.
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of rushing.
Yeah, so I'm going to take him.
At this point, we can't be beggars.
Right. And now, do we want to take our third in Stafford, or do we want to take my boy Tajay?
I don't like. I would rather just wait on Tannehill or just end up with two quarterbacks than take Stafford.
So I'm
unless you really have him stacked. Yeah, I figured that's where we were going.
Yeah.
Unless you really have Stafford stacked, it's not something I'm particularly interested in. But
and Tannehill will throw the ball to Tajay. Now we need to worry about second tight end and a wide receiver. Pierce is not going to make it back to us, unfortunately. We probably should have taken him.
We have 4 picks left, right? So we're thinking tight end, maybe a quarterback, definitely another wide receiver, and
I'm thinking quarterback, tight end, and 2 wide receivers.
Yeah, you got Musgrave with the DJ Moore, right? And is that the? Oh no, he's not. The Bears.
He's with
Falcons.
Minnesota, but I can add
Bears
him.
or Falcons, but
I mean, Dulcich has got.
Honestly, this team's not getting to week 17, so.
Yeah, this might have been a Todd. I know you don't like doing with 3 people doing the draft, and I think we figured out why. There's been way too many cooks in the kitchen. I do think Jake Ferguson, he's been going higher, so if we want him, we probably have to take him above ADP. But Jake Ferguson does fit in
he's already past ADP.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, his ADP, and there he goes.
Oh, there he goes.
Yeah, his ADP is 161. He just went at 164. I think Dulcich is a good guy. I mean, if Pierce makes it back, he's a no-brainer.
Dulcich just went too.
What's that? Oh, great.
Dulcich just went too.
Well, the good thing is with tight end is that, like Irv is very reasonable.
Komet's better than all those guys to begin with.
Who is?
Komet is better than all those guys to begin with.
But we're still like 8 picks away from even getting there.
Yeah. I mean, Komet is right now, he's like 30 picks below ADP, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there
20.
I was gone.
There he goes. I mean, this is the pod where if you talk about a guy, he goes immediately. I've never seen a pod where that happens.
I think Mike Gesicki, that's somebody that we could target late.
I love Gesicki that late.
Michael Mayer, just for the late season run out.
Yeah, but not as
take a shot on Cole Turner that Logan Thomas is never going to be healthy again since we have Sam Howell.
How the hell is this going to happen? Ryan Tannehill. I mean, I think at this point we just got to take Tannehill as one of the next 2.
I mean, I think we're just betting on the 2 QBs, right?
All right, fine.
I mean, we can't take a quarterback that legitimately is drawing live odds not to finish the season as the starter, like before the season starts.
I don't know. I like
Mayfield
Tannehill.
going ahead of Tannehill. That's very interesting.
I think Tannehill is actually, if they're in it, as long as they're in it, and
well, sure.
Vrabel seems to be.
They're not favored in any of their opening 6 games before their bye.
Gotcha.
And if let's say they're 1-5 at the bye, and they're in the Caleb sweepstakes, like you got to at least look at Willis or Levis. Like you got to give them another shot.
Well, you got to at that point you got to play Willis so that you do get Caleb.
The Arizona Cardinals play Clayton Tune all season approach to life. By the way, Clayton Tune is plus 10,000 offensive rookie of the year, and a degenerate that's in this call might have already bet on that. Just throwing that out there.
Well, I just keep hearing that Who song, "Getting in Tune to the Straight and Narrow." All right, so which guy of the ones that we hate that are left do we want?
Is this the kind of team where you just take a shot on Kyler and say, take a shot on Kyler, take Michael Wilson, and just hope for the best? Is this that kind of team?
I mean, I think Dawson Knox is, if he makes it, the one pick we need him to make, is very good in this format. He's going to get touchdowns. What do you think? Or do you want to take a wide receiver? How about we take Curtis Samuel for the stack?
All right, that's fine. Yeah, since we have Hal.
Yep. All right. So we got that going for us. Do you hate Knox too?
I mean,
I hate everybody at this part of the draft, but like Knox makes sense. We have Ramondre.
Conklin
we have
makes
another
sense.
Buffalo player.
I think Conklin's better than Knox.
Why?
Because he's gonna catch more passes.
What about that other guy? That fine Conklin.
Rich is in full Jay Cutler mode at the end of draft season.
I mean, I see the argument for Dawson Knox just catching touchdowns, but like, what else is he gonna do?
What else do you need him to do? That's the third. No. All right.
But what just sprinkling like 5 to 6 touchdowns over the course of a season like is tough, man.
Oh man. So we have 2 picks left, right?
Yes.
See, this is actually why I like to make my decision like after round 6 about what the roster is going to look like, because I think you get locked in. You might overdraft players, but it prevents you from getting into a position at the end of the draft where you're like, well, I don't really know what we're doing.
Well, I know,
which obviously would happen.
I know what we're doing. This one got away from us, and
this one definitely got away from us.
And 3 people in the booth. Me and Rich's point when some major player within our company wanted 3 for every live draft. Me and Rich were both like, "It's not a great idea."
No way, man.
No, this is a wonderful example about how 3, because like the number of picks I would have made that are different, and which makes, not saying they're right or wrong picks, but it is just one of those things. You get into a position where it's hard to have a put together idea of what the team is going to look like when you have 3 different people with 3 different ideas.
Especially when you're doing an underdog draft when it's a 30-second clock. FFPC, you get a minute. You can talk through things a little bit, and then also the way that this board is, so that you could see it, is we can only see like the people I've put in the queue. So. And we're talking, well, whatever. It doesn't matter. I think the one guy that I'm kind of interested in is Josh Downs. Tell me why I'm an idiot, Ray.
I don't know. I think that makes sense now. I mean, do they still only have 3 wide receivers on their team, or they
brought McKenzie back?
Oh, they brought McKenzie back. But either way, Josh Downs is clearly the number 3 wide receiver there in the preseason. So yeah, I'm fine with Josh Downs.
He's arbitrage Zay Flowers.
That's a lot of arbitrage, but I do see what you're saying, and I think that's a good point. I wonder now, do we need
both slots in the pre-draft process? They were a lot closer than they've ended up.
Oh yeah. No, that makes sense. I do think it still could. Maybe we still do a third tight end, but I assume Rich wants us to do 2 wide receivers. Is that true?
No.
I don't mind. I have really no pushback on what you're out to here.
Well, I think
I
we
think
want to
Michael
have.
Mayer makes sense if we're doing third tight end. I think Michael Mayer makes sense.
And
If
that
you
works
take a
nicely
third.
with Vegas, and that works nicely with Raiders and Colts in Week 17 too.
Yes. Agreed.
And he's probably going to be a slow burn at the position, which is fine.
Yeah, we'll have Kyle Pitts until he gets hurt, and then we'll have Mayer after Kyle Pitts is injured. That'll be.
I mean,
that'll
this
be the
draft has
strategy of
already
this
had
team.
more downs than ups. So
There's a lot
There
of
you
weird
go.
correlation here, though. Obviously, this team has very thin odds to make it to Week 17, but the Week 17 correlation is very odd.
Do you know what I'll say about this team? It will be unique. That is.
I
what I
don't
will
think
say
I
safely
don't
about
think this
team.
team is as bad as you guys are making it out. At the same time, there was not one pick.
Oh no, it's
we
got Tony Pollard. It's gonna be okay. Like it's not gonna flame.
There was not one pick where we were like, oh wow, so and so made it to us.
Right.
And whenever you have a draft like that, especially when you're at the 11, forget all the confusion and the three of us. I mean, a lot of the reason that we couldn't make up our mind on any pick is that nobody we really liked ever made it to us.
Yeah, we got sniped several times when players were like, "Oh yeah, this is a no-brainer. Take this pick," and then a couple before we got a little bit messed up with a quarterback run, which can happen when you're picking at either end of the draft. And so yeah, it all kind of fell out of place. But I mean, yeah, this team. What if Anthony Richardson's just Justin Fields except for the whole season? Then quarterback looks a lot better. Kyle Pitts stays healthy. Tight end looks a lot better. And the running back situation's not bad. So
No, the running
they're
backs are
outs
actually
here.
pretty good.
Yeah, they're outs here for sure.
I think I did make a mistake. I think Rich was right a little bit. Like if we had pushed Elijah Mitchell, but you know what? You don't know that there's going to be a quarterback run until, and you can take this draft off the board, Sean. And Tom says, despite all our problems, that he loves all us three. And thank you for an informative offseason. Tom, you are a man with great taste. Tremendous understanding. And we very much appreciate you. Guys, Tom also wrote, honestly, I'm crying. Yes, so are we. So are we. So in fact, I think I'm going to go and get into the fetal position for about 15 minutes, and then I'm going to wash the taste of this draft out with both a beer and another draft.
That's the thing is you just gotta get back on the horse. You gotta draft another one.
Yeah,
you just gotta draft another one.
This hangover will need to be. But no, all kidding aside, I don't think the team's as bad. I don't think we made
it's
any.
in jest. A lot is in jest.
Yeah, I don't think we had any great opportunities that we missed on. And when that happens, and there's three people in the booth, it could be a little bit of a shit show. What's not a shit show is the football offerings at Sharp Football, including the worksheet from Rich Hribar, Lord Reeves on Twitter. If you want a fast start to your DFS week, each week, Rich, I mean, literally, I just have this vision of him like Dobby the elf sitting in his room with no light and barely any clothes for 3 days, getting
it's gotten weird a little bit.
No, I do get a kind of this vision, Rich, of you just burning the midnight oil. But if you do want to get a head start on your DFS week,
weeks 2 through 4 are going to be an adventure. I can tell you that. It always is every year. Once we get that first coming up for air with when the bye weeks start, like just that initial bye weeks, and then obviously someone that's I take more of an evidence-based approach anyways. So we're working on thin data and we're doing 16 games a week. But once we get to week 5, we're in full locomotion mode.
Yep. And Ray, you will be doing some podcasting during the season. Why don't you tell us where everyone can find your work during the season?
During the season, I'll be doing a Sunday evening podcast right after the 4 o'clock games are over at 7:30 Eastern with Tucker Bagley and Curtis Hirsch, who is apparently, I didn't know that you and Curtis were drafting FFPC main, Rich. So that'll be interesting to kind of keep track of that. We'll just be doing, reactions to what happens on Sundays, injuries, some waiver wire stuff for the fantasy folks, things like that. And then Rich and I will be doing a fantasy preview on Thursdays at 11:30. Am I right about that time, Rich? I think I'm right about that time, 11:30. Also, I do have to say, on sharpfootballanalysis.com, you can go, and I wrote up a best ball draft I did earlier this week for a squad that a team I like a little bit better than this one, but also had some odd things go on in the draft. And also I had Cooper Kupp at number 6 overall, which that has, that's turned a little bit since then, but you can go and check that out. Check out the draft kit at Sharp Football Analysis. I know the promo at the top said over 40 articles. I think we're up to over 75 now or something like that. So we've really been cranking out. I say we. Rich has really been cranking out the content. And so there's a ton over there to get you ready for this last draft weekend. And I'm just going to try to savor some of the college football. Hopefully Penn State beats the hell out of West Virginia. And we have a good final weekend before the NFL hits us in the face next week.
I can say, as someone that, was forced to carry the entire offseason load the first 4 years, it has been a blessing having both of you guys this offseason. I do want to congratulate you guys on a great offseason, and it's been a tremendous help in my area having both you guys available.
Well,
look at that. We ended nice. We ended on a high note.
Speaking of things that should have been said at the beginning of the podcast, I want to remind you that you can get access to all our fantasy content, including insights, props, worksheets, and more, by taking advantage of our fantasy packages available on the Sharp Football website. Right now, we're running a special offer for listeners. Use the code ANGLES10 for 10% off any fantasy package. Check it out in the podcast description or use the code during checkout on the purchase page of the Sharp Football website. My work as far as best ball is done, other than the 80 or so drafts I still need to do. But I do want to say that I will be doing a show with Ryan McChrystal. It will be betting and props based. We'll be doing it Thursday night right before the kickoff of the football game. Will give you maybe a prop bet for the Thursday night game. And we'll cover a little bit of early DFS knowledge since we have Rich's worksheet. Not that I'm going to beat a dead horse, but because we have Rich's worksheet early, I will have some sense of how to lead you into the weekend. And speaking of leading, we will lead now out of this podcast. I want to thank our producer, Sean, my guests, Ray and Rich, and for me, Todd. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you soon.